I'm Jack Gary, Director of Archaeology for Colonial Williamsburg. I got into archaeology in the way that a lot of archaeologists get into archaeology is as a kid being interested in finding things in the ground. I mean, it was as simple as that. I mean, finding stuff in the dirt was really exciting as a kid, and I credit my parents for fostering that love. They recognized that there's a field called archaeology that that does this, actually finds things in the ground, and I grew up in Roanoke, so my parents reached out, I believe, to the Archaeological Society of Virginia, to the local chapter, and they put my folks in contact with none other than Mike Barber, who was doing work down on the Roanoke River on a prehistoric site. And they must have contacted him because we went to that site, and I took a garden trowel with me, and he said, "Yeah, come on to the site. I'll let you excavate next to these guys." I think they were college students, and they immediately put a Marshalltown in my hand and got rid of my garden trowel. I got I was a clean scrape on a site that had been stripped, and there were artifacts popping up, and it was just, I thought I was the cat's pajamas. It was so cool, and it must have been 11, and Mike, at the end of the day, he brought me over to the spoil pile where they had stripped everything off. Everything was out of context. And he grabbed a little piece of debitage off of it, this little piece of shirt, and he said, "Here you go. You can keep this." And, of course, we look at that today. Like, all right, I wouldn't do that. But oh man, I was hooked. I took that little piece of debitage. I showed everybody the debitage, and I got to use the word debitage. And I put it in a little jewel case, and which is probably still somewhere in my stuff. But from there, it took off from there. It was having a professional archaeologist take the time and actually explain to me what's going on and show me and welcome me to the site. I had teachers in high school that introduced me to other archaeologists. Matter of fact, they set me up with an internship in high school with Barbara Heath at Poplar Forest, which I never thought I'd ever go back to that place after doing that internship. But it's I got into it by professional archaeologists being interested in me and actually showing me and being open with what they're doing. Yeah, so I'm kind of building on you talk as a younger person, talking with all these archaeologists. Oh, I did the Passport in Time program too in the National Forest. Oh man, that was so cool. um, Everyone said, as I started getting ready to go into college, I would ask, where do I go? I asked Barbara, I'd ask Mike Barber, other guys, and everyone said, because they all went to William and Mary, they said, well, you should probably go to William and Mary. So I said, oh, okay, great. So I went to William & Mary for my undergrad. It was the only place I applied. It was the only place I wanted to go. Got in. So did my undergraduate work at William & Mary. And then after that, spent several years doing CRM work before going to UMass Boston for my master's degree. So William & Mary, UMB, those were, that's the educational background. My undergraduate field school was here at Colonial Williamsburg. And that was at a time in CW's history where the department was massive. And there must have been 50 students taking the field school, and it was spread out over multiple sites. And I worked at CG10 out of Carter's Grove, and it was being run by Kevin Bartoy and Steve Archer. And the question they were trying to answer was, if you float plow zone, will you get good results? So our field school shoveled all the plow zone into potato sacks, brought it back to the lab here at Colonial Williamsburg, and floated it. And we never screened anything. We never got to excavate the features. All we did was float plow zone. And Steve and Kevin got their answer. No, it's not worth floating plow zone at a plowed site. But that was my field school at CW. And then when I was at UMass Boston, I worked at Sylvester Manor. I was one of the TAs for the multiple field schools at Sylvester Manor on Long Island, just off of Long Island, where we were working on a 17th century provisioning plantation, which was just, that site is still up there as one of the best I've ever worked on. Yeah, the collegiality is a good part, is a perk of the job. But I think my favorite part of the job in the role that I'm in now is being able to talk with our staff here. So I spend a lot of my time going from site to site, checking out what's going on, providing guidance, making decisions in the field. But it's the conversations with everybody, field techs, lab techs, and otherwise. It's That's my favorite part about it. And half the time it's about archaeology, half the time it's about completely things that aren't about archaeology at all. But it's those interactions that you have at sites, and I think that's one of the great things about archaeological sites, isn't it? I mean, it's the communication that you have with people. And sometimes it's solving a problem, and sometimes it's just shooting the breeze with each other. That has always, I think, been the most fun part of archaeology, and it still is today. When I graduated from William and Mary, I there's two career tracks for me. I was either going to go into archaeology, which I'd been planning to do, or I was going to be a rock musician. Which I had a band after college, and we had a house here in Williamsburg. We were setting ourselves up to that was the track, is either archaeology or be a rock star, and or rock musician, I should say. And I was doing archaeology, doing contract work, and then at night we would practice. We made an album and played shows and stuff. And well, you can see which one worked out. The rock musician thing didn't work out, but I'm pretty happy with the archaeology career track. Well, the whole music thing. There's some aspects of it that I've always thought kind of somewhat applied to archaeology. Particularly, there's a performance aspect to archaeology. There has to be sometimes when putting together, say, a staff or a project, or a staff for a project. You kind of have to go about it the same way putting together a band. You don't want all lead guitarists. You don't want all drummers. So you select people that will work together and will gel together. I think that's one of the best ways to do archaeology is make sure you have good people around you that work together. It's a pretty obvious statement, but I think it's a true one.